Hi, and welcome again to Cubiccube of Reviews. My name is Cody, also known as Cubiccube, and today I am going to be reviewing another Fantasy Flight game. This one is a little bit older, I think, than the last one that I did, which was Relic. We are going to be reviewing Chaos in the Old World. So this is also a game set in the Warhammer universe, but this is Warhammer Fantasy versus the 40k setting that was in my previous review of Relic. This game is an asymmetrical area control game, is what I would describe it as. So, I've been giving up the goat kind of early on, telling you my views on things, so this time I'm going to try to leave that more towards the end. But essentially in this game, you're playing as one of the four Chaos Gods, which is Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, or Khorne. You can also play as the Horned Rat if you get the expansion. Sure, Horned. I think it's just the Horned Rat. Keep wanting to do Shadow of the Horned Rat, the old PC/PS1 game. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your cultist, you're going to take your demons, and you're going to take your greater demons and place them about a board and try to accomplish what your Chaos God needs to do. So there's multiple ways to win, and there is one way for everybody to lose. You do want to work together in some instances, such as something that newer players of the game don't do, is stop Khorne, to actively work together to not let Khorne get a huge lead, which some people consider Khorne overpowered, which again, Khorne is a little bit more based in die rolling, so he's going to have a little bit more of a luck factor in there, but he can definitely be controlled by experienced players. But anyway, Khorne is essentially just trying to kill as many people as possible. Nurgle is trying to corrupt and burst as many regions as possible in populous areas, so places with the most people. Slaanesh is trying to control areas where there are nobles, people that are easily corrupted and influenced by Slaanesh with power and lust and, debauchery and whatnot. And then Tzeentch is all about the warp stones, trying to get into areas where you can use warp stone to your advantage. But anyway, enough about the kind of beginning here. Let's go to the board. I'll show you kind of basics of it. I'm going to try to make this video a little bit shorter, and then I will get into the full end review after that. Alright, so here is Chaos in the Old World. The board here, right off the bat you'll notice that this is a game that I would highly recommend not playing with younger children. It is a heavier game strategically. It's not actually hard to learn to play, but it does require quite a bit to know how to play well. But the main reason is if you can see here on the map, this map is actually a stretched out piece of skin that it's drawn on. And I can get this to zoom in here. So you can see right there are hooks, rusted, bloody hooks pulling the skin taut. And there's little pieces here where it's sewn in. Just not the most child-friendly map of all time. So you have that. These are all of the regions that you're going to place your units in and try to take control of, which is where the area control part comes from. Now you also have these dials and this victory point track here. So the dials will allow you to get special abilities, pull out upgrade cards for your god, and give you victory points, let you place extra things on the board, and ultimately can also lead to your victory. And again, since this is asymmetrical, each of the gods has a different wheel. So Slaanesh only needs to move the dial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and Slaanesh wins. So one of Slaanesh's things, considering that he does have the shortest dial, is to try to win by dial. And it's up to the other players to stop Slaanesh from doing this. Now on the other hand, Nurgle has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 total spins of the dial to be able to win through dial. Which essentially means that Nurgle never wins by dial. It's nigh impossible for him to get what he needs before another victory condition would have been met for him to win the game. Essentially, if Nurgle wins by dial, then the remainder of the players have been playing about as poorly as possible to allow Nurgle to do that. Now, all of the characters here, or all of the gods, each have their own special things that they can do. So each god shares one unit in common, which is the cultist. Get that in there. So the cultist, this one specifically is a Nurgle one, whereas you can tell here the Cornate one, if I can get it angled right. Cornate one is the exact same, just red instead of green. And so on with Slaanesh purple and Tzaentch blue. Now on that, each of them do have different unit counts as well. So Nurgle, being that he is all about corrupting and dropping as much corruption as possible, has a total of 6 cultists that he can place into territories. He has 5 plague bearers, which are warriors or standard demons, and he also has a great unclean one, which is his greater demon. Now, Khorne, on the other hand, has 2, 3, 4 cultists, 6 warriors, or regular demons, which are the bloodletters, and 1 greater demon, a bloodthirster. So as you can already see here, you have different unit counts which tend to push you towards certain things. Khorne, again, is usually not going to try to win through corruption or victory points. Now that does change a little bit if you do use Horned Rat. He's got some interesting ways to try to play, and all of the gods realistically get something kind of cool that modifies it by doing the Horned Rat expansion. Now, again on each of these, with the warriors and the greater demons, they are all unique. So that is a plague bearer. Focus here. This is a great unclean one, and again you can see the ripping open his stomach and entrails coming out. Not really child friendly. A bloodletter for Khorne. A bloodthirster for Khorne. A demonette for for Slanesh. A Keeper of Secrets for Slanesh. First one was the regular demon, this is the greater demon. And finally, we're going to have a horror for Tzeentch, just a giant shambling pile of nast, tentacles, whatnot, and a Lord of Change. Let's see, I'm here. Will you focus, camera? There we go. That looks a little better at least. All right. Now, you can also get special abilities, as I was saying on the dial here. So, Nurgle gets a dial, he scores 3 VP. So then he can move this up to 3. He does another one, he gets to remove 1 corruption from anywhere on the board from any player, including himself, which generally he's not going to want to do. But then this next one is an upgrade card. Now the upgrade card, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but it allows you to change things that your creatures can do or special powers that you have. So here the Great Unclean one, if you take that Greater Demon upgrade, you can immediately place 2 corruption tokens in a region when you summon a Great Unclean one there. Or you could take Power of Pestilence, which is when you recover power points in the draw phase, you gain 1 more power point than the highlighted value. So it essentially allows you to do 1 more thing or 1 more point worth of things, which gets me to your kind of standard turn. So you're going to have multiple things that you can do throughout the game. You can place your cultist, you can place your warriors, you can place your greater demon, you can play your power cards that you will get into your hand, or chaos card, I guess is what they're called. And then you can spend your power points to utilize these cards, or play these guys. So lepers, over here, these numbers. Sorry, was interrupted by my daughter. So this here, what I was trying to show you was these numbers here. Those are the PowerPoint costs. Oh, let's knock my camera over. Those are the PowerPoint costs, which here shows your power, and you'll have a little marker that I drop. So right here, this marker, you'll just slide it to wherever your power was. So that other card where I said you start with 1 extra, you would start at the 7 instead of the 6. So anytime you want to play a leopard, it costs you 1, plague bearers 1, and great unclean 1 is 3. So you can see with 6 power points that you start the game with, your turn can be over fairly quickly, not even including just playing these, because you also have different cards, the power cards that you can play, such as Stench of Decay. It's a 3 power point. It does have a magic icon, which Tzeentch can play off of, or other cards can play off of. But it does say if you dominate this region, place 2 corruption tokens here. So it's a really good card for popping a territory, or just building up your corruption so that you know that you're in control of it. Because whenever a territory is destroyed through corruption, which is getting it to 12, then you will flip one of these cards and score accordingly. So the Ruiner, anytime that you ruin an area, which means you help by ruining it, by putting at least 1 corruption token down, you get 3 victory points. Then you have a first place and second place. So Norska, if Nurgle controlled Norska and it was the first one to break, he would get 6 victory points. And then the second person, so if Slanesh and Tzeentch both had guys there, but Slanesh had 2 corruption tokens in Norska, and Tzeentch only had 1, then Slanesh would get the 3 victory points, and Tzeentch would lose out, and then these would be returned after it and then this card gets placed there to block that and show that that area is now ruined. But you'll be able to see, for every progressive ruination, it gets more and more. So this is where the acceleration of the victory points goes to, where it makes it difficult for someone like Nurgle to actually win through a dial victory. Because here, each ruiner gains 4 points. And then, again, on Norska, which I just showed was 6 and 3, is now 7 and 3. And some of these other regions, like the Empire, you can see here, it's 11 and 5. These are territories that you're really vying for to make sure that you've at least got your finger in the pie. If you can't take it out yourself, at least to pull some points, because these middle areas are going to give you a lot of points, but they're also going to be targeted a lot by Khorne, because Khorne just wants to do easy kills where people are. So when you first place something on the board and you choose an area, you can only then play directly adjacent to said area. So you could then place someone there, and then place somebody there, and then there. But if these two were missing, then you could not play into the Empire. So some of it will be just making sure that you put your guys somewhere where you can both stay away from your enemies or get into your enemies' places, depending on what you want to do during that turn. And you can leapfrog, which means that you could spend a power to put a guy here, spend another power to put a guy here, and then spend another power, but instead of taking somebody from your stock, or if everyone that you have is on the board already, you can still spend the power to move them from here to a territory adjacent to this. So do keep that in mind. That's something that people don't think about right off the bat. Tzeentch has some ability to teleport around the board, mess with people. Tzeentch is really fun. He is a little bit more difficult to get the strategy down with him at first, whereas I think Nurgle and Khorne are definitely more straightforward. Slaanesh, I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Slaanesh. It's the only one, and maybe I just haven't seen him played very well, but it does seem very difficult to win as Slaanesh. Now, I have won as Slaanesh a couple of times, but the more and more that I play, and the more and more other people that I've played with get a handle on the game, it definitely gets very difficult for Slaanesh to win the game, because he has to have a beginning turn advantage really to pop off on that dial, and if he doesn't get that, it's very hard for him to make a comeback. So there's a bunch of other things. There are tokens that can be placed down that make a lot of these areas tougher to dominate, which I didn't talk about. So this number here, so 1, 1, 2, 4, those are areas that you can dominate. When you're there, that means that if you have more people in that area than anybody else and that beat this number, so you'd have to have at least 3, then you would gain 2 points for dominating that area. But there are other things that will make an area tougher to dominate, such as peasant tokens with some cards. Skaven tokens will actually lower the need for the resistance for domination. These 2 spots that are kind of sewn into each side, that's actually where you would play your cards. When you play it into an area or a territory, you would play it here, and if you have 2 cards there, then that area is blocked and no one can play cards there anymore. So again, there's a lot of strategies in this game to make sure that even though you may not want to play a card, it's worth it to play a card to skip your turn, to let someone else go. It's worth it to block an area in one of your territories if you're worried that, in this case here, Tzeentch is going to teleport your guys out or teleport something in, and you want to make sure, well, I guess specifically teleport out from this area. So you want to make sure that you can block that area. You could play a couple of cards here, and then Tzeentch cannot play a card because those 2 places are blocked. You also have at the very beginning of the turns, You will have old world cards that will add different events or special things to the game. So the Grail is found. All corruption tokens are removed from every region where there's at least one event token. Peasant Uprising, you place one peasant in every region except the Badlands. And then, oh, right there. So while this old world card is in play, each peasant token on the board raises the resistance of the region it occupies by 1. So everything except for the Badlands, its resistance is going to increase by 1, which would make domination of those areas much, much more difficult to get victory points from. It does have exploding dice, same as Relic, so if you do roll a 6, you do get to continue rolling. And, of course, now I've forgotten, but I believe you hit on 5s and 6s. So that's where some of the luck can come from with Khorne, because they're definitely more about trying to kill the opposing players versus trying to corrupt. So there's a chance that you're going to dump a bunch of guys into one area and you're going to come up with a bunch of misses and not be able to get the points that you need to advance your dial. It's pretty rare if you put a bunch of guys there, but again, still can happen, and vice versa is the same. You can have one guy who can slaughter an entire army's worth of people just by having a hot streak of dice. But I think it does play pretty well. The averages are pretty good with it. Really the way to win is the dials, getting one of your dials out to where you're going to get the victory, getting to at least 50, and you can lose by getting, or everybody can lose by running out of the cards. I want to say it's 7 or 8 in the Old World deck. If all of these are played through and nobody has won at that point, then everybody loses. The Old World has managed to stave off the annihilation from the Chaos Gods. So you definitely don't want that to happen. And that's going to pretty much sum it up. There's a whole lot of special rules and different things that go into this game, but I think it will take a little bit too much time for me to go into all of that. Like I said, I want to keep these a little bit lower, but that will do it for now. So my final thoughts. Chaos in the Old World is literally one of my favorite games of all time. It's very easy to learn. I know this is kind of a cliche, but very easy to learn, very difficult to master. In the beginning, a lot of the things that you do don't become quite apparent. Again, if you're looking at the forums where people are just complaining about Khorne and how overpowered he is. He can be, and there is still a chance for him to get a good streak right off the bat, and it's tough to stop him, but what a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes you have to put a guy down and waste a whole turn and a power point to pull him back out so that Khorne wastes more, because he's dropping 2 points. Yeah, 2 points on each bloodletter that he puts down. So if you just put a single cultist for 1 point, he puts a bloodletter for 2. That's a good trade. It's a 2 for a 2, but he's also not going to score off of that and become a bigger, nastier beast later. So in the beginning, the other players really have to kind of work together to stop Khorne from immediately just blasting off. And same with Slaanesh. Slaanesh needs to be held in check in the very beginning of the game as well. But in all of these cases, this game, really, there's very few games that give me that every single thing I do matters. I never feel like, I'm just going to put a guy there because whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll get an extra die if I put a dude there. No, it's never like that. Which, again, this should be a caveat for people who have extremely AP-prone friends. which is analysis paralysis. Basically means that there's somebody who, in a situation where they have a choice between A, B, and C, will take 15 minutes each time to figure, okay, if I do A and then in the future this will happen. If you're playing with someone like that, this unfortunately may not be a great game for you. Just because the game is actually set up to be very, very quick. If you're paying attention, if you're watching what other people are doing, you can kind of plan out your turn, because you're just doing one action at a time and then it moves to somebody else. So you're not doing power 6 to 0. You're doing 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, but as you're doing that, you do 1 point, your buddy does 1 point, your next buddy does 2 points, and so on and so forth, and it just kind of goes back and forth like that. And it's a very quick game in terms of you're not sitting around forever waiting for everyone else to play and getting people on their phones and stuff like that. The issue again though is that these choices are very heavy. So if someone is not keen on making a decision quickly, if nothing else for the flow of the game, then this might be an issue. Now the cool thing is that it actually plays again pretty quickly in both turn length and total time. So the game will only take, I would say, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and for a game that's this strategic, you can play a few of these in a night. So just try to remind your AP friends, if you have any of those, to, hey man, let's just kind of push it a little quicker. So to my kind of final things, number one, which is what you get for your gamer money. It's a fantasy flight game. I don't think anyone can really argue the fact that this stuff isn't just gorgeous. Even the little individual counters for the gods for their corruption tokens, again, each different miniature where you have actually unique miniatures for the different gods. The artwork on the cards here with Tzeentch, I mean, these cards are a little bland, I guess, but they work, and that's really all that it needs to be. But on the upgrades, you do have little pictures here with the acolytes, and the horrors have their own unique art down there. Nothing huge, nothing too distracting, which I think is a good thing. This game needs to be kind of quick, and if you're just staring at your stuff the whole time. But the board, obviously, it looks like, I'm assuming, which is human skin. It could possibly be a goat or something, cow, but with the theme, I'm pretty sure it's human. So other than it being kind of disturbing in that aspect, again, the artwork is still awesome. The dials are really cool, the multiple ways to win. But yeah, component quality for cost, again, Chaos in the Old World is not a very expensive game. And the amount that I have played this game, this is probably one of the highest for me in terms of what I got out of it for how much I spent. I've played the crap out of this game, both in person, and I was playing online for about a year with some guys until I had to do some other stuff. But I've just tons and tons and tons and tons of games of Chaos in the Old World. Love this game. Number two is going to be Table Space. It's a bigger game. The map, as you can see again, about the same size, a little smaller, I guess, than the Relic board, but you do have to have each of your individual spots for players and whatnot. So it's not something that's super portable, I would say. It's going to take up a standard kitchen table, whatnot, but it is quick, so it can be put up reasonably quickly. It's not too bad when it comes to that. It's a little fiddly, but it's not super fiddly. Number three is the Wife Patience. This game can be played pretty quickly with a group of people that knows what they're doing. Will definitely take a little bit longer the first time because there are some special, unique rules that will kick in here and there that you'll have to look up, but for the most part, it's pretty self-explanatory. The last thing that I want to say about this game, though, is that you really need to have 4 players. With Shadow, again, Horned Rat, the Horned Rat expansion, you want to have the 5. Because this game does not play very well in a 3-player game. Because one of the gods is left out, especially if you leave out Khorne. Khorne is the check and balance for everybody. If he's not there just slaughtering and murdering and taking his skulls and whatnot, the other 3 people, for the most part, are kind of just playing a solo game at that point, and it's not very fun. If you remove one of the other gods, then again, you're usually removing something that can help you defend yourself or take out Khorne. So, like removing Tzeentch, and Tzeentch not being able to teleport, because there are times where Nurgle is stuck somewhere, he can see that, he knows that Nurgle can't get out of there, he's going to try to help and teleport out one of Khorne's bloodletters, just to possibly stave off him from gaining another advancement token this turn and making a dial move. And those are the kind of things in the very beginning you're like, why would I ever... Of course I want his dudes to die. Yeah, but you gotta think long game. So, the main point though is that you want to have a full complement of players. If you're not playing with a full complement of players, I'm telling you right now, the game is going to feel broken. It's not going to feel very fun. And at least as far as I'm concerned, and I played a lot of games, I have not played a lot of 3-player ones, but the 3-player ones that I've played, completely different experience than the 4 and 5-player games. So, and it was not a good experience. But anyway, that will wrap up my review. As you can tell, absolutely love this game, worth every penny. Would say go out and get it. And as long as you don't mind the theme of being an evil god trying to murder and corrupt and destroy everything, and you can get past that, there is a fantastic hardcore strategic area control, almost Euro kind of game in here that really needs to be played. With that, wish you all a good day.